Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
And I am Chris Clements.
We have the great
The
Jim
immortal.
Ellis back with us yet again.
The omnipotent.
Yeah.
We like it when you come to town, Jim.
It's always my pleasure.
Jim
Thank you.
Ellis
I like
in the
coming to town,
house.
too. Yeah.
It is getting a
Now
little
we're
warm.
actually going to learn something because, we think we know it all, but we have guys like Jim on and we figure out really quickly we just don't.
Jim is the guy, and those who've watched and listened to the podcast for a while know Jim has a long history. Jim and I have a long history.
Yes. Oh.
He has been my go-to guy for brains when it comes to
Well, you're in
political
trouble then, John.
Well, it's the best I got. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you.
So the big news, just off the bat, big news yesterday.
Jump right in.
Kind of jumped, it happened very quickly. Well, quickly publicly. I'm guessing.
Yeah,
there's
behind
a
the
lot of
scenes there was a
machinations
lot
in
going on,
But
sure.
there's going to be a presidential debate between
Yes.
Donald Trump and Joe Biden on June 27th,
When everyone will be watching.
long before.
Everyone will be in town. They'll be glued to their television.
Yes.
Nobody. I mean, this is unprecedented. We've never had a presidential election debate in modern history that was before a convention. So
Smack in the middle of the summer, right before the conventions.
yeah. So the Republican
Actually,
conventions.
Literally when summer begins.
Yeah, Republican. So this is June 27th. It's going to be on CNN. No studio audience.
Which
Microphones cut off. I mean,
I don't understand why Trump agreed to all that.
I was going to say the same thing, Chris. I don't get why he's agreeing to all this.
Yeah,
And the moderators, CNN,
So
Jake
So here's
Tapper,
why.
who's one of his
Okay,
biggest-
Here's why.
Sean set
tell
it
us.
straight because my
Tell us.
first reaction when
Trump-
this was announced was like, why is he agreeing to any of
Trump
this?
doesn't
I
care.
had the same reaction.
Trump doesn't care what the situation is because he knows that Biden is going to be so terrible. Well, he believes that Biden's going to be so terrible that no matter what the situation is, he's going to come out on top.
And he believed that in the first debate in 2020, too, and it backfired on
It did backfire.
Well, he came out way too strong.
Way too strong.
Rather than just taking a step back and letting Joe just be Joe.
Exactly.
But also Trump, in his defense, he was coming off of COVID and he was pumped up full of a lot of stuff, like Joe was, just to get him to the stage.
And how do you beat Joe Biden in a debate? And you just mentioned, you just let him talk.
Just let him talk.
Something Trump can't do.
Right. Trump's incapable of
that
allowing
is a
someone to just
challenge.
talk.
It is a challenge for Donald Trump.
Well, and so obviously, this is a take that's now been out there, and it begins to conform with an opinion I've had for
yes, we've been
almost a
beating
year.
this dead horse.
that the
It's not dead yet.
that the Biden people wanted an early debate so that if it goes so badly, there's still time.
If he misplaces his note cards,
Will
he have a binder like his press secretary?
Whatever
It's
the
on
case.
tab. It's on tab
so
3.
if he
Let me
falls
get to it.
over or passes out or just says gibberish like he's prone to do, and it's untenable, there's still time to replace him at the convention, which for the Democrats is in August.
Okay, well, in terms of gibberish, that was as we mentioned a little bit earlier, and I got it wrong, but that was a 14-second video yesterday challenging Donald Trump. And in that video, there were 5 edits.
5 jump cuts.
5 edits.
That dude can't talk for 14 seconds.
Talk for 14 seconds.
Well, that was pretty good, though, for him, isn't it?
And he was looking over the camera, so he's looking at the teleprompter. I mean, he can't do it.
So that's a
for
jump
Did he
cut.
read the
14
prompts, too? Did he read the prompts this time?
Look down, look up, clench.
Well, no, that's why they have the jump
Pause.
cuts because they took all those out because it was edited. But that is a jump cut every 2.3 seconds. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
So do you believe this is real?
Do I believe it's
I mean,
real?
do you believe they actually will have a debate based on what is happening?
Well,
Between the court
yes,
cases,
yes,
between
they will,
Joe Biden obviously declining rapidly.
barring Joe Biden dropping out before the 27th, there will be a debate. Because what happened was the Biden team obviously worked with CNN behind the scenes to lay the parameters so that they could have it exactly the way they wanted it, completely controlled, keep RFK out of the mix.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the question is whether RFK Jr. ends up in the second debate, or if there is even a second debate in September, depending on what happens in this first debate.
Yeah, September 10th.
I'm surprised
on ABC.
Biden doesn't want RFK in the debate. It seems to me the more people, if I'm him, the more people in the debate, the better, because that's less time he has to be on.
Yeah, that is a great point, and it's something I was thinking about this morning. And
It just depends on who you think he's drawing from the
well,
most.
but not only that, I don't think the Biden people feel like Biden can take on two. So even if it's taking up time,
But
it's because he's going to get Trump's not going to attack him for being. Well, maybe he would. I think that the attacks from RFK Jr. and from Trump would there'd be some that were very much the same, but RFK Jr. can attack him from the left in a way that Trump can't, which could make him vulnerable.
yes, but I would think the moderators, since they're pro-Biden moderators,
Well, the entire
would try to get them, Trump and Kennedy, to be going at each other.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And Trump wants to do that, move Kennedy to the left to
Yes.
make him more acceptable to the hard left, so they won't vote for Biden. So,
Well,
it's interesting.
I mean, if you look at polling, I mean, where RFK Jr. is getting his strength is from young people.
Yeah.
He's clearly he's hurting Biden with that. Which I still think RFK Jr. is a bigger threat to Biden than he is to Trump. And in most states, most of the swing states, Arizona's clear. When RFK Jr. is in the polling, Trump does better
Yeah.
than if it's just head to head.
it seems to be about 2 points.
And
better.
he's turning in lots of signatures throughout the fruited plain.
So the
He
question
just
is
turned
whether
in 250,000 in Texas.
Yeah,
he's going to qualify there. That's a big get.
So they've
he
got
says
this
he's on 13 states right
That's
now.
big.
Yeah, he's got about 180 something electoral votes, and they say that the CNN guidelines are you have to be at 15% in 4 real polls, and on the ballot in enough states to actually presumably get to 270 electoral votes. I don't know if he can get
I don't know
that.
if he
I can get there in 6 weeks.
No.
I don't know if he can get there.
So, but it also does give RFK Jr. another talking point about here's the establishment of the right and the left, and they're putting the independent down, and so RFK Jr. is gonna come out better, regardless of whether he's on the debate stage or not.
Yeah, that's very true.
So this is, in some ways,
Regardless of the fact there's
biggest
a worm
winner.
in his brain eating it.
Well, the worm died.
Apparently.
Oh,
the worm
gone.
died.
Yeah.
The worm died.
It ate it, and then
It ate what
It
it
ate
needed.
it and died, but you never know.
You never
it could,
know.
So, but
could
the
explain a great many things.
the big winner in all this is RFK Jr. because this is going to bring more attention to his.
Well, I
campaign.
mean, when you're polling to 15 to 20% and you're not being allowed to debate, that's a valid point.
It is. Oh, I think he
I
does
mean,
have a legitimate.
Yeah, it's
reason to be
absolutely
there. Yes.
valid.
Yeah.
He's
Perot
a
was
viable
there.
candidate.
Yep.
He has every right to be on that stage.
He does.
Yeah.
He does.
And trashing Dr. Faustus and all the COVID policies that are now turning out to be totally false.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and that's
Imagine that.
Yeah,
well, and that's
Dr. Bricks was on Neil Cavuto the other day, basically admitting that the vaccines didn't work. It was great.
and that is another reason, in part, why Trump doesn't necessarily want RFK Jr. on the stage.
Yes, because it draws attention to his policies.
His
leading
COVID
up.
policies
that's
are
a good
very
point.
much outside where MAGA world is,
Yes, that's true.
and they have just conveniently forgot.
Yes, they have. Absolutely.
Yeah,
some of
that's a
that
very
stuff.
good point.
So
We rushed that vaccine. Well, yes,
Maybe
you
you
did.
Yeah, you did.
And how many young men have perished because of
yeah,
that?
I mean, there's
Quite a few.
it'll be years before we unpack. I mean, it took years to unpack the Fauci problems with the AIDS epidemic and what he did there. So it's going to be years before we unpack COVID.
Well, I mean, I think ultimately Dr. Faustus has blood on his hands for all of it.
Yeah.
The gain of function research, working with
no
the
question
Wuhan
about it.
lab of technology, squashing that in the press the way you did,
And lying to the Senate.
and lying,
I mean, there's
lying
no
to the
doubt he
Senate.
did that.
Why
Rand Paul was able
is
to call him out, but there's no
why was
doubt.
Rand Paul the only one who was like, you're
Well, because
lying?
he's a doctor and he knew what he was talking about.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice to have a doctor in the house.
Right.
Of course.
Or the Senate.
Dr. Pepper. Yeah, right, the Senate.
Well, you might need
So-
a doctor during the debate.
So speaking of the Senate,
I mean,
Yeah.
you might need somebody
You need
there.
to definitely in the Senate.
For either one.
Yeah,
but
perhaps.
speaking of the Senate,
Yeah.
there was a Senate primary
Yes.
in Maryland
Yes.
this week. Jim,
Oh,
tell us about it.
well,
Yes, that's
Congressman-
exactly why he's here. We're
Yes. Do you all have the Total Wine out here? Is that a name?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
we do.
So David Trone is a congressman from Maryland.
Yes.
And he is the founder of Total Wine. It was Total Wine, then it was Total Beverage, and now it's Total Wine and More, whatever.
Total Wine and More.
Yes. And
One of the
so he's
biggest pains in the butt to deliver to for any wine, beer,
no
liquor
Oh, is that
company.
right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, he's close to a billionaire from that business, and so he's in his third term in the House, and he's running for the Senate, and he just ended up losing the Democratic primary after spending $62 million of his own money. And
Wild.
I live in Virginia, so I'm in that media market as well, and you couldn't turn on the TV without seeing him for months, and it was a classic case, Sean, and you've seen this too, where sometimes you spend too much and you're too present, and I think that's what happened to him for one, and I think his strategy was off too, because he made a lot of mistakes towards the end, and he was trying to really go hard left, and his opponent, who won, Angela also Brooks, is the county executive of Prince George's County, which is a big county outside of Washington, D.C., and it's heavily African-American. And Maryland is the third largest black state in the country. So the black vote in the Democratic primary is really huge, and it's critically important. And she had the whole African-American establishment, including the governor, Wes Moore, behind her. And so Trone's answer to that was he was moving far to the left, which she had that nailed down. And I thought that was a mistake because people outside of Baltimore, in Baltimore County, in the Annapolis area, more centrist Democrats really didn't have a place to go. And I think that depressed the turnout, and I think that hurt him. I think he would have been better off if he maybe emphasized more of his business contacts and went a little bit more to the center. I think he would have done a little better. But I think the
So being more of a
over-the-top-
sensible Democrat rather than a
Yeah,
lunatic.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he really tried to be the lunatic at the end.
Well,
And then he was blowing that, and then he had to back down because he said that one of his ads said that he wouldn't have to be in training wheels as a senator.
Yeah, you mentioned
And so
that in
they
your letter.
objected to that, and he immediately backed down and immediately changed the whole ad. They re-edited the ad, so that's out. So he was doing things like that. He was too
So he's being
reactive.
reactionary,
Totally.
not in
Totally.
control.
And I think he made several of those mistakes.
Which is
in the
crazy.
last-
When you've got $60 million, you should be completely in control.
completely in control.
That's fascinating.
So I think, his consultants had a great payday.
Yes, they did.
But and he ends up losing by 12 points.
Yeah, it wasn't even
12.
close.
It wasn't even close.
One thing you
I
said-
thought she ran a very good campaign on top of that. I thought so from the beginning because you could tell she knew she couldn't outspend him. She raised about $6 million on her own,
Which
so
is
she was
pretty
outspent
impressive.
10-1.
Yeah,
Yeah.
$6 million.
Wow.
It was a very good effort.
Impressive.
And she held it till the end, which was a smart thing to do when you know you're getting outspent. And he was on TV for about a year spending money on this. And so I thought she did well on the campaign. She had the people lined up. They did a nice job for her. And he's a member of the House. So there's 8 members of the Maryland delegation. Only one of them's a Republican. So 7 of his Democratic colleagues, only one of them endorsed him.
Yeah.
The other 6 endorsed
Endorsed her.
including the former House Majority Leader, Steny
Steny
Hoyer.
Hoyer. Yeah.
And he represents part of that county where she's the
Yeah.
county executive. And so I thought the optometrics there aren't very good for
No,
Trone either, that his colleagues were almost unanimously
Against him.
against him.
Yeah.
So
he,
But then you mentioned in your ad in your letter this
Right,
morning that
yeah.
his last ads attacking former Governor Larry Hogan
Yes, I think
also reverberated negatively towards
He
Trump.
did.
That's an interesting point.
So there was a poll. One of the universities there did a poll, and they did test because Larry Hogan, the former 2-term governor,
Yeah.
Republican, he wins that state. This is one of the strongest Democratic states in the whole country. And Hogan won that twice. And actually, now that he's out of office, he has the strongest positive ratings of any two-term governor in the history of that state. And so even among Democrats, his favorables are over 60.
Wow.
And so Trone comes out and really kind of attacking him, saying, I'm the only guy that could beat Larry Hogan, and electing him would end democracy, basically. And even the average Democratic voter doesn't think that.
Right.
I mean, they may not vote for Larry Hogan at the end of the day, but they like him too. I mean, they think he's done a good job for them. And so I thought that was a mistake as well, making Hogan a part of his campaign message. I thought was premature and not necessary, and I don't think he did it well.
Well, and this this does in some ways, and it probably, from Hogan's perspective, it's a mixed bag, right? Because also Brooks is going to have strong African American turnout in the general, and so he's going to have to deal with that. But he doesn't have to also deal with another $60+ million.
Yes.
Which the DSCC, I'm sure, privately they were going, boy, if he does it, then we don't have to spend any money there.
Yeah, they're the big losers.
Yeah.
Because they thought, well, first of all, they didn't think they'd have a race in Maryland at all. Hogan jumping in kind of at the last minute was a big surprise to everybody. Mm-hmm. And then when they had Trone, well, Trone wins a primary, we're going to say, well, you go pay for it.
Yeah.
Well, now they don't have that, and she will be screaming loudly.
Yes, she will want the money,
and her claims will be legitimate.
Right, and the NRSC is already talking about spending real money.
Oh, they're going to spend real money. Yes,
I mean it's
no doubt about it.
No, it's definitely in play.
Yeah, it's definitely.
And it
in play.
wasn't 6
and
months
those,
ago.
those eastern
Or
states,
even 2 months ago.
Those eastern states are interesting because you've seen that in several states where the states Maryland, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont. These places that typically vote heavily Democratic have elected relatively consistently Republican governors, but it doesn't translate into the federal races, and that's
Or
interesting.
rarely.
And I'm not sure it does for Hogan. I mean, the Republicans could not have a better candidate,
right.
who's better well thought of than Hogan, and everybody knows who he is.
Yeah.
In the states. So, but my guess is he still probably doesn't win. I did have a meeting with his pollster prior to the primary, and we discussed, Sean, this very thing as to who do you think is the better opponent for Hogan. And we both kind of agreed that Trone probably is the better opponent for him. Because
Easier to
and we
contrast
saw,
with
and I
him.
think the primary proved that to be true.
Yeah.
I mean, if he couldn't win that primary, because there wasn't like that groundswell of support for him. I mean, he was basically just buying his support.
Right.
Yeah.
As
People
opposed
saw
to
right through
her,
that.
who had actual real support.
Yeah.
And
So
so I
what
think
do
that
you-
hurts Hogan in the general.
So given all that, though, I mean, what do you think is a viable strategy for him to win?
Well,
What,
I think
what does he have to do?
Yeah,
I mean,
that-
knowing the
that's
state a lot better than we do.
That's a good question, and I think he needs to prey upon the positive job he did as governor, that he can get results. He's proven he can get results, and he certainly, I don't think, will get tagged with Trump. Which
No.
any Republican will be in bad shape in that state. But he's been so far out front against Trump. And if you're talking about basically having an independent, I think he's going to basically run as an independent figure there. And, I'd have to say my guess is he probably does not win. And I think this is a harder race for him, as we talked before, than it would have been against Trump. Yeah.
Well,
Because obviously Trump wasn't particularly likable. And he would have made the same mistakes in the general election.
right.
Yeah. Well, is she likable, though?
Yeah, seems to be relatively likable. Yeah,
Okay.
She
doesn't come off
takes
as
the pretty
crazy
hard left
like
position.
the district attorney of
she-
Baltimore.
No, she doesn't come, or the mayor, the former mayor. She doesn't come across as crazy. No,
Okay.
no, she comes across as much more reasonable
Yeah.
and emphasizing more, family and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, so let's walk through some of the other big states. So a lot of Tester, I saw some news about how he's going to.
He's
Totally.
running with Trump.
Well, he's
Unlike
not
Larry
running-
Hogan,
he's not,
he's wrapping Donald Trump around
not
him.
running with Biden. He's like, Biden's going to run his race. You know,
Oh,
I'm
yes.
not running Biden trains.
And he's in trouble.
because
You know,
when you
even
look
Bob
at
Casey in Pennsylvania said that.
yeah, I mean, you look at so these guys, Casey, Sherrod Brown,
Yep.
Tester, the last time they were up was a good Democratic year.
Yes.
And
2018.
yeah,
Wave year. And then what was the last time they were on the ballot prior to that?
2012.
And what happened then?
That was Obama's reelection.
Barack Obama running for re-election.
Right.
So this
So-
time they've got the wind in their
So
face
there's
for
definitely
the first time.
yeah, the first time that they've actually got some serious issues
Right.
in their cycle. So how does this play out?
Well, these are must wins for Republicans. So if we set the calendar or the map, if you
Well,
will,
so
and we'll go ahead.
it's going to be 50. It's 50-50
It's
now.
50-50
basically,
because they win West Virginia. That was the
Right.
point I was going to make. So they need one more for the minimum majority.
Yeah.
But the map clearly favors the Republicans this time. So 34 races, 23 Democrats have to protect their seats versus 11
Yeah.
Republicans, and the Republicans just aren't vulnerable really in any situation. The Democrats are their typical story on Texas, which we hear this every 2 years. that
Are they
have
going to
good
spend
candidates.
money in Texas?
Yes, I
really?
think they will.
Are they
Yeah,
really?
it's-
Well, they will in the Senate race.
That's what I'm talking about. They're going to really.
Well, they had
Really gonna
I mean,
spend
they
money
had
with
to
that
make-
clown?
They had to make promises to Colin Allred to give up that House seat to, and then he wins the primary. He's raised a lot of money on his own, but this is not the year for him to run in Texas. Yes, he is a good candidate. I will admit they have a good candidate. He's former NFL football
Right.
player, 3-term congressman, African American. I mean, he would sell well, I think, but not in 2024. With the Biden energy policies in Texas, and
and the border?
you think?
Yeah.
The border.
You know, and as
There's
much
a little-
as these people
little
try to
thing
say
there on
they're
the Rio
strong on
Grande.
the border, they're not.
Right.
You know,
Not even close.
not even close. So I think Texas is off the board. In Florida, here's another thing on Florida. Let's go back to 2018. So when Rick Scott was elected senator from Florida, and he'd won close races as governor, he wins by just 10,000 votes.
Yeah.
In 2018, wave Democratic year. There were more registered Democrats in Florida than registered Republicans. In 2024, they just went over 900,000 more Republicans than Democrats.
Almost a million.
That's how much it's changed
That is
since
amazing.
2018.
Just
So Rick
2018.
Scott is not going to have any problem.
No.
But we're talking about Montana and Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the top two targets. And for the reasons, Sean, you mentioned, the first time these two senators have had the wins against them. And particularly Tester, where that's probably going to be Trump's 4th or 5th best state
Yeah.
in the country. But even in Ohio, you know, he's won twice by 9 points, and it looks like he'll do that again. So they both have real problems. But as we've seen, Republicans have blown easier races
Yep.
than those.
Yes, they have.
Yeah.
Yes,
Because
they
these guys are formidable opponents.
They are.
And they've got a ton of money. And that's a huge thing right now. If you look at how the money imbalance on the Democrats' favor is
Yeah.
pretty substantial. I added up all just the candidates for Senate and House and the party structures, not any outside money. And Democrats have raised $300 million more
Oh,
in this cycle than Republicans.
Yeah.
And that's really going to be felt at the Senate and the House level. I don't think it
Yeah.
makes that much difference in the presidential race because they get so much attention.
Right.
Everybody knows
Yeah.
the candidates. Everybody knows what they're going to do.
But these Senate races, it'll
are a
matter.
big deal.
Um,
And that's the biggest imbalance.
right. That's where the biggest problem is.
But do you think the citizenry, like in Montana, will see through Tester's?
You know, he plays that
Attempt.
good old bull. You know, I'm one of you. I'm a dirt farmer. You know,
But
you
his
know
vote-
me. You know me.
His
and all
votes
this stuff.
say otherwise.
But his votes say otherwise. Now, this year, he is a Montana senator for this year. The previous 5 years, he was New York and California.
Right.
Yeah.
But and they'll try to sell that.
We had a senator like that.
Yeah,
He used to get elected a lot too.
that's right. It tends to work. They tend to get away.
He'd show
with
up. He'd show up to Arizona and the town hall meetings
Yeah.
like about 8 months out.
it. Yeah. Well, you know who was a master at that 2 years ago was Arlen Specter in
Yeah.
Pennsylvania. So, but anyway, for Tester, I don't know. It may be up this time for him. I mean, because the state has changed a lot since 2018.
Yeah.
Again, he doesn't.
And the
have-
border's a real issue up there.
It is, and
it's a
these
massive
people-
issue, and he has done nothing.
So about 3 weeks ago,
Yeah.
he and Senator Rosen from Nevada, Jackie Rosen, they released ads at the same time, and I was looking at both of them. They were both almost word for word the same ad,
Oh, wow.
Really?
almost word for word. And it was news to me too. They both stand up to their party, but when?
When?
And they're strong on the border.
Oh my god.
Oh, they are?
Really?
Really?
Give me a
Yeah.
break.
Now, this is before they both voted against having the Mayorkas trial. So when they had a chance to actually do something,
No, not going to do that.
they didn't stand up to their party.
Right.
So, but they both have overwhelming money. And in a small state, I think in those two places in particular, it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
A big deal.
Well, and we've got a primary in Nevada
Yes.
that is not a sure bet for
Sam Brown.
Sam Brown, who's the kind of the blessed candidate, right?
Yeah, and I understand Sam Brown's not the hardest worker either. So,
Really? Yeah. Well, that makes a difference.
yeah, it does. Especially in a place like that.
What's your evaluation of Ohio and Bernie Moreno?
You know, I think he's got a united party that ought to be enough for him. Sherrod Brown is tough. He's won a lot of races.
Well, he's
there.
tacking to the middle too.
Oh, he always
he's the
does
most
that.
liberal
Yeah, he
senator.
does.
He's
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 the
more.
most liberal senator.
He does this.
And now
Yeah.
he's doing it. Well, that tells you where he is.
Yeah.
I think a wild card, if they use this right, and I'm not sure they will, but if I were running this, and see what, Sean, if you would do this in particular, remember the East Palatine situation
Oh,
where
yes.
you had that
Absolutely.
big explosion there in rural Ohio, and Biden did absolutely nothing.
Right.
And then they finally dragged out Buttigieg to come there. Remember in his shoes and everything
Yeah.
they were making fun of?
Yeah.
I mean,
Notice
I'd
how
run
they've hidden
all
him?
throughout rural Ohio saying, this is what Joe Biden thinks of you. And to really beef up that rural vote that
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brown has tended to get some.
Right. That because Brown has done well in his previous races because he reaches into rural Ohio better than what people
Yes.
would expect. And if Marino wants to cut into that, that's a great way to go. That's a
I think
great-
if they
great
do
idea.
that, I think that's what I would do, really concentrate on that and maximize that rural vote. And you got a great example.
Yeah.
Because he hopped on. J.D. Vance, I thought the other senator there, the Republican freshman, did a great job on it.
Yeah.
And Brown ended up kind of hopping on what he was doing. So Vance was clearly the leader to help those people.
Yeah.
And Brown was, just trying not to get hit politically here.
Right.
And so I think that kind of came through.
I
But those
kinda-
two races are real critical. But I think then the next tier, we after the primaries, Nevada will be top tier. Michigan is all of a sudden becoming major, and Maryland. I don't think Arizona's in that top tier.
No.
You're right.
No, I don't think Arizona is, since in a three-way
We no longer have a viable Republican candidate this year.
in a three-way race, I think
Yeah,
all three of
yes,
them had a chance
yeah,
to win. And
no,
I'm
it was-
surprised Sinema didn't run, because I thought she had a path.
I did
You
too.
all would know better than me.
I
We
think
both did.
We both thought that she did. I definitely thought she did. I think that it ultimately I think it probably just the risk was too much for her. Thinking, I mean, she's gone through hell with
Yeah,
the
she
left. I
has.
mean, they've just really eviscerated her.
Yeah.
And so I think that she didn't. I think she was more psychologically. She wanted less to lose to Gallego than Lake, and the chances of Gallego winning. I mean, everything was pretty even, right?
Yeah, it was.
I mean, I really
I
thought
could see there was a way for all three of them
Yeah,
to win.
I thought that this was going to be 33. You know, it was going to be like 33.5 to 32.5 to
Yeah.
31.
I was looking forward to that.
Yeah,
The
it would've
wild
been
card
fun.
race, but,
It would have been fun.
it's so I don't think Arizona's in the top tier. I'll tell you the other ones. So the Republican version of the Democrats' position in Texas and Florida are Wisconsin and Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And this is going to be kind of amusing because in those 5 states, including Arizona, because they're still going to spend a fortune here, Arizona, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Florida, Texas, millions of dollars are going to be spent by both sides, and nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
I mean, the Democrats are going to keep this with Gallego.
Yeah.
they're not going to beat Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin
No,
or
that's
Bob
a
Casey Jr. in Pennsylvania. I mean, here we
those
go.
are two big lifts.
They're coming back with David McCormick on the Republican side there in Pennsylvania, and he's I think he looks good. He sounds good. They love him. The party loves him because he's rich and he can spend a lot of his own money. But the rap on him, he ran the largest hedge fund in the world for several years from Connecticut,
Right.
and apparently he still lives there.
Yeah.
I mean, he has a place in Pennsylvania, but everybody says he still lives in Connecticut. He grew up in Pennsylvania. That's just not going to fly there.
Yeah.
And I always thought before Senator Fetterman had that stroke that he would have preferred to run against McCormick than
Oz.
against Oz. Because Oz was, at that point, before the primaries, was a little bit more of a wild card.
Yeah.
But they know how to beat a guy like McCormick.
Yeah.
They'll do the 1%er, which he is.
Yep.
He's not one of you. He doesn't live there. I'm one of you. Fetterman, I know he would have done that.
Yeah.
He did it against Dr. Oz.
Yeah.
It did. It worked. And so Casey is even harder to beat than Fetterman.
Yes.
I mean, first of all, he's a 3-term senator, so he's running for the 4th time.
Yeah.
Before that, his father was a 2-term governor and a 2-term attorney general. So combined, the Bob Casey name
Yeah. It's an institution.
has won 7 statewide elections.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I just, and he's going to win an 8th.
Yeah.
Now, and he's Biden. We'll stay away from Biden there. I'm
Yeah.
running my own race,
Yeah.
and it'll work.
Yeah. Well.
So Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, I just not even going to pay attention to those.
So we've got a shot at getting 52 legitimately, and we could get to 53.
Yeah, we could.
54.
It's like, if some
like Nevada, Michigan could.
But
yeah,
stretches.
Michigan is wild this time, and it's this Israel issue is
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
And
because
Biden
Biden,
has
Biden
so
is
bungled
focusing on the wrong things
he's
there.
completely.
Yeah,
And
he's
you've also
he's
got-
destroying the car industry by these
Right.
EV mandates.
Right.
Sorry, Sean, but it's true.
It's true.
It's true.
And then he's
Oh, do you have one?
yes, he
yeah.
does. He's destroying the car industry.
But I got mine before I
He's-
got any benefit for it.
He's.
I don't get a
and
tax
to
credit.
your point about Texas, he's going after the oil industry there. So
Right.
I mean, that
It's the
just
same thing.
so 2 different areas where the working class rely on those jobs, and blue collar workers, union workers rely on those jobs. He is not the most pro union president that he thinks he is.
And then he's got the Muslim leaders there,
Yes.
which is
Just real
major
tough.
group. They're telling them not to vote for Biden.
Right.
And that doesn't mean they're going to vote for Trump, but if they don't vote, that not only helps Trump possibly carry Michigan, which is an important state, but it might bring Mike Rogers over the finish line in the Senate race.
Right.
And I don't think they're going the Arabs there are going to turn around and then the Muslims are going to vote for Alyssa Slotkin,
No.
who happens to be Jewish. I don't think
Right.
that's going to help her in this election.
Exactly.
So, Michigan, I think, is a real play for the Republicans. And as you know Mike Rogers, as I did. You probably do too, Chris. But he's an excellent candidate.
Yes, he is.
And he'll be able to do what needs to be done. And so,
Well, but it's interesting about the Muslim population there, because first you have the Israel issue, but then you have this supreme tack to the left on social issues,
yes.
of which the Muslim community is absolutely against.
Right.
Like
right.
they have voted Republican in the past precisely for these issues.
For that. Yes.
Oh,
Oh,
and,
yes.
I mean, I've seen, Orthodox Jews, Muslims, Christians, Catholics band together in Michigan to
Yes.
fight a lot of this far left
Right.
lunacy.
And they keep doing it. They keep going far and farther.
Yeah.
And Biden doesn't seem to be off.
I mean, like
that.
Title IX this last couple
Yes.
weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Just absolute craziness.
It is.
So that's going to have an effect as well.
I think it does. So I think Michigan's very much in play for the Republicans. But now on the map, my favorite topic here on the presidential map, if you want to talk about that
Yes.
for a second. So really, the most important state. Okay, so here's what Biden has to do. Let's start with him first. He only has to do 90% of what he did before.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and that means
Even if he only has 50% capacity.
right. And
I'm sorry, I'm feeling kind of randy today
yes, you are,
about
yeah.
Joe Biden.
that means he can give up Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada and still win.
And still win.
Now he can't give up any more than that, but he could give up that. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
So, and he'll make a play in North Carolina because of the 25 states that Trump won twice, and he has to keep all of them, North Carolina is the weakest one. Now, he's looking good there now, but, he won by less than a point last time.
Yeah.
And it's a tough state. So you then look at Georgia. That's the most important state really on the board to tell us what's going to happen, because Trump has to win that. And then if he does, then he's got to take one of those 3 Great Lakes states, either Pennsylvania, Michigan, or Wisconsin. He's got to take at least one of those.
I think Michigan is.
Pennsylvania and Georgia, by the way, win it for him.
Yeah.
That gives him exactly
Pennsylvania's big
270.
enough to- right.
Yeah. And so that's his shortest and easiest path, although Pennsylvania, I think, is tough. Michigan, of those 3, looks like his best bet right now. But he's got to get one, or it's over.
Now he's up in the
But
polling.
if he takes
here.
Georgia and Michigan, then either Arizona or Nevada
Would do it.
put him over the top.
Yeah.
Now he's up by like 8 here, but that's
Yeah,
not gonna
I
that's not gonna have
think
an effect on the Senate race because
No.
No, the separation is
Yeah.
real. I mean, I think
And
that
it won't be Pennsylvania. either.
I think Trump wins Arizona, and I think Trump wins Nevada. I think that
Yes. Oh, he's way up in
because
Nevada. right?
Nevada, people view Nevada as pretty blue,
Yes.
but it's a very service industry oriented town that has really suffered the effects of inflation.
Yeah.
And so those people are going to swing back to Trump, I think.
And 7
And so-
statewide races in Nevada last time. Democrats won 4, Republicans won 3.
Yeah.
So they can win a statewide race there. It's kind of like
in,
the opposite. of
in
North Carolina.
2022, which was not a great year.
In 2022.
we thought it'd be a great year.
Yeah, we were wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should listen to you. Yeah, we should do that more often.
Yeah, that's why we have him
We're
here.
not reading
That's
the
generally
letter.
my
enough.
advice, too.
We should start every podcast by just reading the Ellis.
Ellis Insight.
There's what's happening. Ellis Insight.
So it's, but that's what he's got to do. And if he took Wisconsin, then he would have to take Arizona. I think that's the least likely scenario, because Wisconsin is typically, of those 3, been Trump's
Yeah, I think
weakest
that's gonna
of
be the
3.
hardest.
So I think it's
It's either Pennsylvania
got
or
to either be
Michigan.
Pennsylvania. He's got to win one of those,
Yeah.
or he can't win. I mean, it's really that simple. Yes, you could make an argument he could take other states and get to 270, but realistically, if he doesn't take Georgia and one of those 3, then he can't win. Now remember, he won all 3 of those states in 2016 and lost all 3 of them in 2020, he being Trump.
Yeah.
So, but it's always real tight.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that the change, because we're not in COVID, there's going to be a difference in some of these upper Midwest states about how the vote happens, right? I mean, because it was very, male oriented on emergency basis.
Oh, yes.
But it's going to kind of fall back to normal a little
Oh,
bit,
except
right?
Michigan changed the law, so now
Okay.
that's
So
the
they've
problem.
They've gone.
So does Pennsylvania.
Okay. So they've codified what they did in 2020.
Both of those states did, yes.
Okay.
As did Nevada.
Yeah. Yeah. Nevada.
Yeah. So that could be a potential problem for Trump.
Unless he stops talking about mail-in voting being fraud. if he totally embraces it.
But as you
Well, if
guys
you
know,
notice,
it's not
it's-
the mail problem.
No.
It's
Yeah.
the lists. That's the problem. It's the who gets on the list, and that's why they want this driver's license, automatic registration, no voter ID. And I don't understand why the Republicans have never attacked that election integrity issue, whatever that is, with make it a voter ID issue.
Exactly.
It's a 90% issue.
It is
Absolutely.
It is a mystery that we because we get ourselves wound up on all this
Yes.
conspiracy. It's like the basics. Stick to the
Right.
basics. If you require an ID, period, you're done.
Yeah.
It's good.
It's Ilbert. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, that is why we know that nothing was been stolen in Arizona, because we require ID.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just fact.
Yeah. Right. And again, it's not the count.
Don't.
Right.
It's not that they're forging the count. It's the who's on the list. And the problem is sort of the brilliance of what I think has happened here, and why the Democrats want what they want on to some degree, maybe bringing in all these illegals, because they've got a bunch of names flying around, and with driver's licenses they get, and then they're automatically on the rolls. And by edict, somehow, I thought the legislature would have to do something about this, but in Pennsylvania, by edict, the governor declared we're going to driver's license registration. Well, that's interesting. But
Yeah, imagine
don't
that.
they have to pass a law? I guess you don't have to do that now. And so then they're legally on the list, these names. And then with ballot harvesting
Right.
and these drop boxes, I mean, that's the problem, not the counting.
Yeah.
The counts are accurate.
Yeah.
And the fundamental problem they've got then is that those are legal ballots. I mean, these people,
Yeah,
on these names are on the registration list, and so they get a ballot. I mean, they're legal ballots.
That's the stuff that needs to be challenged way ahead of time.
Right.
Like today.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was one of the reasons, one of our criticisms of the Trump campaign the last time is they didn't challenge early and often.
He talked about it, but they didn't
They
do
never
anything
actually
about
did it.
Yeah.
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 Well, I mean, and that might be another point I was going to make is there might be some saving grace in what Sean has brought up several times that there's actually some real pros running the Trump campaign now.
Yes. His operation's much better this time.
And his daughter-in-law seems to be doing a fairly decent job too
Yes.
of getting the campaign off this no mail-in votes and everything else.
Yes.
And just
Yes,
working
she
within
is, actually.
the confines of the state and their laws.
Yeah.
Saying hey, if it's
Because
legal, we're doing it.
It's not the mail and it's not the count.
Yeah.
It's the,
Which is the right approach.
It's all ahead of that.
But you
all
can't
about
tell Carrie Lake that.
No,
She
no.
still believes that
No.
everything was stolen.
She thought she won by 8.
She won by 8 points? Is
That's
that-
what she said.
Oh, really?
She won by. They stole it by 8 points. Yeah. That's
That's a lot of points.
grand theft election.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, and
Not possible.
now we're going to have a lot of discovery coming up in August. Was she and
yeah.
Stephen?
So
Richard?
another challenge for her as a candidate is the
Yeah,
fact that
she's
she's got
gotta
this
go
defamation
spend some
lawsuit,
money.
which she admitted in court that she did defame Stephen Richer and she did lie
And
about
he's
him.
the county clerk?
County recorder.
Recorder.
And so she did that, I think, to try to stave off discovery. And then the judge said, "Oh no, we're going to damages. We're going to have discovery so we can figure out the damages." So she's
Can you say
she's-
that? Yes.
she's screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a good thing.
Not a good thing. Not a good thing. No, not a good thing at all. So.
Yeah. But she's going on all the shows like she's leading. And
Well,
she's not.
Yeah, she's not. And look, it's not outside the realm of possibility.
Well,
It's a very, very, very,
I just
very
want to
small
know
chance.
what her recording is of you talking to her at Collins Pub. I just want to know what it
may
is.
come out. It may come out.
I want to know what you said.
I told
Come on,
everybody
Carrie
what I
Lake.
said. I
Give
told
us
her
the
not to
recording.
run. Told her not to run. So there is a minuscule chance that Mark Lamb, sheriff of Pinal County,
Yes.
could actually
Knock her off in the
knock her
primary?
off in the primary, and then
all bets are off.
That
Will
becomes,
this court case be decided before the primary?
No,
No,
it won't.
the court. Yeah, the primary's late
It's
July
July
now.
30th.
Oh, that's right,
Yeah.
July 30th.
We moved it up from August when we really should have moved it up to May.
Yeah, Florida did the same thing. I think they're July 30th.
Yeah,
We'd be well ahead now
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yes.
of knowing where we're spending
Where we are.
money
but
and stuff.
there continue to be warning signs for her in the state that if Lamb takes advantage of these openings, who knows?
Well, it seems like he's been running for Senate now, ever since he was elected as sheriff.
Well, he announced before she did. I mean, in fact,
Oh, yeah.
as I understand it, she was very encouraging of him to run.
Oh, I'm sure she has it on recording.
Probably.
I'm sure it's all been tabulated at this point.
So I think that race is going to get more interesting rather than less interesting. But if she's the nominee, then Arizona's not on the map.
Arizona's not on the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I think, too. And Gallego is attempting to move to the center.
And I'll tell you, his messaging is really good. His ads are solid.
Well, and I read, too, he's about ready to drop $19 million
Yeah.
I'm sure.
on a media buy. He needs to worry about being David Trone, though, spending too much.
Well, too much too soon. Like right now, you don't need to be spending a lot of money.
Well, but he's doing it smart because there's a void. He's not as well known as she. She's everybody knows who she is. So she's
Right. That's true.
There's not much he can do unless it's, I don't know. But he is doing exactly what he needs to do, which is building his name ID and building his positives, telling his story. He's got a pretty compelling story, and he is masking how liberal he is.
Oh, yes.
And
Yeah, of
and
course. That's the name of the game.
with nobody attacking him,
Right.
you know.
It's going to work. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why
Because-
Kirsten would have been great.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
She would have been great. That middle lane, the pro business,
Right.
it was wide open.
I thought so too.
Wide
I
open
was
for her.
just surprised.
And, she's the hardest worker out of the
It'll be
the three.
fascinating to see at the end of this, you know, to look back and
And she's the most
divine.
likable.
Yeah, she's definitely the most likable.
I mean, it's
by a
she
mile.
had a, you know,
Yeah.
if only she will come on the show to explain herself.
Well,
You know,
we should ask her.
Yeah.
So, Jim, where can people read your stuff?
Oh, ellisinsight.com.
invaluable.
Thank you.
If you love the nitty gritty, granular stuff of politics, no matter where it is, it's a great read every day.
Well, thank you.
I love
Yeah.
it.
It's been my go-to for many years.
Yeah, no, I love it.
Many years.
Oh, it's just an honor for you to be here. Thank
Well,
you so
thank
much
you
for
for
your
having
insights.
me. Of course, I enjoy you guys, and it's fun to do these.
Well, we're you know this is our season. You know,
It sure is.
this is our season.
It doesn't
This
get better than
this.
this.
is when we
Right.
make. This is when we pay the bills for Star Worldwide Networks. I think.
That's right.
So we got to have like more people like you on
Yeah.
to set us straight and make sure that we know what we're actually talking about.
That's right. Thank you, Jim, for being here.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
God bless you.
All right.
Appreciate
Safe
Thanks,
it.
everybody.
travels back to DC.
Take care.
God bless.